following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
And welcome to another edition of the Pro Wrestling Showdown podcast. I am your host, Regular Scott. I am here with my co-host, the wrestling connoisseur himself, Mr. JD. JD, how you doing?
I'm good. I like that, wrestling connoisseur. It's a little bit like Uncle Oz, but I'll take it. I'll let it ride. I'm good, man.
I got my comic connoisseur. I got my wrestling connoisseur.
I like that. I was telling you before the show, I just finished up my Dragon Gate Final Gate preview for the Viking Media website. Dragon Gate got a big show coming up this weekend. It's going to be pretty cool. So looking forward to talking some wrestling. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. You know, it's getting close to Christmas time. Just finishing up some shopping, trying to do as much online shopping as possible.
I try to do that anyway. Like I just go to the store now when I want something to do. You know.
Yeah, that's it.
There's no reason to shop. I mean, even once this COVID thing passes, there's no reason to shop ever again. I mean, I'm fine.
Why even do it when you can just do it online?
That's what I'm saying. I was about to say, you should be in a really good mood because your boy Dick Grayson is going to be in really good hands next year.
I did see that, and we're going to see what Mr. Taylor's got for us. I'm 100% confident it will be a lot better than what's happened in the last year.
I'll say this: DC's been through it. We talk about I've been talking about these companies having tumultuous 2020s. No companies had a more tumultuous 2020 than Warner Media and their whipping boy DC Comics. Mm-hmm. Like they have been through so much stuff, but it seems like the new editorial regime's made some really good choices heading into 20. And I haven't been a Wednesday guy in a long time. I might have to again because I really like some of the choices they've been making for stuff upcoming. I like Bendis on Justice League. I like Bendis team books. So I'm curious to see what he does with that. I like the guy they hired to do Superman, Tom Taylor on Nightwing. I mean, this is all looking pretty good.
Yeah, the future state looks pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm
actually
excited.
I have to admit that I've been clamoring for them to make some original stories and create some original characters. So they're gonna give me what I want. I'm excited.
Yeah, a whole new wave of DC characters. Like they tend to do this when they're just in the middle of a major shift. So hopefully we don't have any more major shifts. Like God, I've been reading DC like pretty consistently, except for the last 2 years, since like 2007, and 2006, and I can count like 5 major like shifts in the company in like 13 years. That's too many.
Well, we've had like 3 in the last 5 years. Rebirth, New 52, and now this future state. I mean, that's 3 in the last at least 10 years.
Yeah, the New 52 was in 2011. Yeah, then you had Rebirth, and then it's been a lot, man. Like then after Rebirth, they had something in between, didn't they? I forget. It's so hard to keep track of them.
It was
so
like
hopefully,
the death metal.
The death metal, that was actually not bad. I enjoy Scott Snyder and his lunacy, but that was fun. So yeah, man, it should be an interesting year in comics, but we should probably talk a little wrestling.
Hey man, well WWE does have a wrestling comic, and AEW has been working with DC artists. They put a lot of those pictures out.
Did you see what AAA did this weekend?
I didn't actually take a look at it, but I saw they were dressing up as some superheroes.
Okay, so first of all, the AAA. Let's start with this. The AAA show was awesome. It was probably the best empty arena show I've ever seen. Like.
Wow.
Hugo Savinovich, the old WWE, Spanish announcer, is doing the announcing for AAA. The energy I don't know, I can't speak Spanish, but the energy he brings just makes everything so excited. Kenny Omega and Laredo Kid had a late match of the year contender. It was really, really good. But yeah, and what I'm talking about is Marvel licensed their characters to AAA, and they formed. They're not like their characters inspired by Captain America, Spider-Man, Thanos, and Venom, and nobody knew who they were until the match started, where it became very obvious who everyone was. Thanos was very clearly Brian Cage. Taurus was very clearly Venom. I'm not going to do the Spanish versions of the names. Daga was Captain America, and Leo Rush was Spider-Man.
That fits. That all fits perfectly.
It was perfect. Like,
Yeah.
I was watching this going, oh, the match was not as good as it should be with the 4 guys involved, but it was fine. Like, it was pretty entertaining, though. Like, AAA is an entertaining promotion. Like, I can't say enough good things about it. Like, it's been fun. It's been a fun week of wrestling, I'll be honest with you.
AAA is one of the few companies where Leo Rush and Brian Cage can go toe-to-toe, and it'd be believable.
And it'd be believable. It's absolutely, like, there's something about Lucha where the disbelief gets suspended even more, and it kind of opens it up. AAA, by the way, 1 million viewers on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube for their live stream.
And,
So,
we kind of talked about this on Twitter a little back and forth and Facebook about whether, we argue on all platforms.
Oh, yeah.
We're
All
arguing
platforms.
on all
That's what we do.
platforms. So we talked about whether, or how much credit Kenny Omega should get for the big number that you talked about with AAA, the 1 million viewers, and obviously with Impact and with AEW. So, how much credit do you think Kenny Omega deserves for kind of giving that show a little boost?
Any viewers in Mexico, clearly 0. I'll say the majority of viewers in the U.S. and Canada, I'll give Kenny Omega the nod for, because he was the only American star they were pushing. Like, nobody knew about Leo Rush and Brian Cage and those guys, and they weren't even announced on the show. Like, you had to kind of do some detective work. Kenny Omega was promoted because he hasn't gotten to defend that mega championship in Mexico very much because of the COVID. And there was an uptick. And what I found really interesting was that, because what's cool about Hugo's commentary is he'll go back and forth from English into Spanish. It's very Spanglish. And if you grew up in like a Latino community, it's pretty common to hear people flow in and out of both languages. I've always marveled at that, having grown up around a bunch of Mexicans myself. And Hugo just at one point breaks in and goes, Kenny Omega is not the same person he was thanks to Don Callis and da-da-da-da-da. So I was like, wow, this angle's now stretching across 3 different promotions. And I'll be honest with you, AAA probably had the best presentation of it so far in this 2-week angle. Like, I'm going to give Kenny Omega a lot of the credit for views in the U.S. and Canada. Clearly not in Mexico, because AAA is still big time in Mexico. But outside the country, I think you got to give it to him because, like, Kenny Omega's been, at least for the first couple weeks, a draw for interest. He's been getting extra eyes on multiple products, and we'll get into that as we go into the show. But I think it's give flowers, I think was the term you used on Twitter, so I'll steal it from you.
Yes, give them their flowers.
Yes, I think Kenny needs some flowers.
So all you're saying is just to give Kenny his flowers. That's all you're asking.
That's all I ask. Give Kenny the flowers, because people dogged on him for the majority of 2020, and he lied low in building up this angle that's got people talking. We'll get into that more, but yeah, I think the man needs a rose or 2.
Okay, and our main topic is going to be whether, because obviously JD and I both agree that the match that they're building towards is a Rich Swann versus Kenny Omega champion versus champion match. We already got kind of the seeds of it with the 6-man that they've already got planned, which is the Motor City Machine Guns and Rich Swann versus pretty much the Bullet Club, Kenny Omega and Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. So, that's going to be our showdown version, is who should win that match? Which champion should come out on top? And I think there's cases for both champions as to who should come out on top and why. And each match could play a very vital role into who should and when they should. So that's going to be our main topic. But before that, JD, tell everyone where to find you on your socials.
Oh, boy. The easiest place to find... I'm a busy person. The best place to find me is on my Twitter. It's at JD_Oliva, Oliva. I write for Fight Game Media. I cover amateur wrestling, and mainly I've been covering Japanese wrestling on the site. I imagine that'll grow as time goes on, but that's been my focus for the last few months. I'm an author. You can find my stuff at Amazon, JD Oliva, same name. I do have a Facebook author group, JD Oliva, writer at Facebook. I'm everywhere. I'm too busy. I'm losing my mind.
And then listen, don't let his modesty fool you. He played a part in this angle that you are seeing unfold. So don't let his modesty fool you. He plays a part in the wrestling world.
I'm biased because of that. So it's hard for me not to say this angle isn't great because me getting worked is a small part of why I love it. And I admit that. I'm very close to the source on this. So I can't be mad at that.
You can't be mad at that.
I got worked by Don Callis. To be quite frank, I'd like to hear something else from him because I've been hearing the same things from the man for a month now. We need to get some new material, but it's early.
It is still early. And you can find me on Twitter at @NE4Marvel vs. DC. You can find this show at Showdown Pro on Twitter as well. And you can also download the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spreaker, Radio Public, all those places. We're all there. So let's get to our 3 count then. JD, let's go ahead and start with where do you want to start with the 3 count?
Name it, you call it. My brain is jello. I just wrote a preview.
Okay, well, I saw a great match on NXT with Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne. Just a fantastic match. It went at about 20 minutes, no interruptions, quote unquote, even though they went to the picture-in-picture, which I hate the picture-in-picture. Both shows do it a lot, and I hate it.
Everyone's doing it.
I'd rather you just go to a commercial.
Like, I get it. They don't want you to flip the channel. But, I mean, because I'm a regular AEW watcher, so when they go picture-in-picture, it could be Pac versus Kenny Omega on there, and my eyes are going right to my phone, right when that commercial starts.
Right.
And I love wrestling. I watch tons of wrestling, but the second that commercial comes on, I zone right out.
Just go to a commercial, I feel like there should be more utilization of this match is going to go no commercials. And it doesn't have to be a 20-minute match. It could just be a 10-minute match. But sometimes they should just throw that out there, and you never know what you're going to get.
No, I agree. Again, that's part of the fun. I covered last week on the show. I talked about a Japanese match in Noah between Sakuraba and Keno that went 4 minutes. And everybody was like, whoa. It just gives you that idea that, hey, man, these things can be short sometimes. I think we have this idea that longer equals better, and that's not always true. Sometimes short is better.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one thing we, even you will agree, Goldberg and Brock, I always talk about it. They put on a 5-minute match, and it was a really good match. You don't have to put on a 20-minute match to have a classic. People talk about that match.
I'll be honest with you, in the last decade of WrestleMania matches, that's in my top 5 of most enjoyable matches because it was so surprising, and it was the right utilization of Goldberg and Brock Lesnar in this moment in their careers. That match worked. That worked fine for me.
Another example is a match that when we did our watch-alongs back in the day was Kushida versus
Hiromu.
Yes, that was like a 2-minute match, maybe
2-minute match. Hiromu beat Kushida in 2 minutes, and the crowd was just like, "What?" Sometimes you got to do that. You got to surprise people.
And you got to watch the match because if you don't see what happened before the match, you don't understand why that happened. There's a whole story to it. So, stuff like that needs to happen more often, just kind of the unpredictability of things, even with top guys.
Kenny Omega beat Sonny Kiss in 6 seconds. You need that sometimes.
Yeah, see, that's good. That's what I like. I would much rather him do stuff like that than what he did with, I think it was Alex Silver, and go 10 minutes with him. I'd much rather him just...
It was Alan Angels in the pandemic.
I'd much rather him just buzzsaw people.
Yeah, it's filling time. And to be honest, Kenny wasn't really doing anything. I think that was a tryout match too. So.
Oh, okay. Well, he is the executive, so what better way to try somebody out than to get in the ring with him yourself?
See what the kid actually can do. I know people are critical of that, but, it's essentially a forgotten match during the time.
It's definitely a minor thing, but...
I've heard the criticism.
Yeah, as comparison, I like the buzzsaw Kenny, and with the whole attitude with it, so it all worked. Yeah. But yeah, just a great match, and NXT they're slowly building up their characters. Karrion Kross made a comeback. We're going to see how that plays out. Him and Damian Priest, I think that's going to be a fantastic match. I feel like Damian Priest is on borrowed time as well in NXT.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I think so is Kross, to be honest with you. Kross is a guy I think is built for the main roster. The whole act, it's very Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge fan of him as a work rate guy, which is why I do think he'll be better off in WWE. I think the character performers do better on the main roster than the worker guys. So I do think the whole package with him and Scarlett and all his bullshit, quite frankly, Vince McMahon will enjoy it, and it'll be his flavor of the month for a little bit, and he'll beat that into the ground.
Yeah, you're probably right, and she's going to be the star of that package, regardless of what happens. She's gonna be fine on the main roster.
I mean, she's got that she's got a look and a presence that's very I'll call it a throwback to an Attitude Era type performer. Mm-hmm. Like, I think she's probably a little more athletic than some of those girls were back then, but she's got a look and a presence. And if you watch her Impact stuff, a lot of her mannerisms in the ring, the whole smoke show thing, which they haven't done in NXT, but they did it in Impact together, it would work. Vince would absolutely love it. I don't know if he would do it today, but it reminded me a lot of what he was doing 20 years ago. So I think Scarlett's going to be a star when she gets there.
Yeah, so it could end up just being they're both on borrowed time. So, I'm looking forward to that match. I think they've done a good job of, even though injury played a big part of it, so they didn't really do anything. But him not being around has really kind of kept him special as far as Cross goes. Just because you haven't seen him a lot.
I think he's one of those characters that needs to be kept special. Like, I think if he's an every week performer, it exposes him a little bit, and I just don't think he's that great. Like, in rings, like sometimes I think Bray Wyatt's the same way. When Bray Wyatt has lots of matches, you kind of can see through him. Mm-hmm. Like, some guys need to be kept special. They just don't do that, but they should. Those two especially, because you can do angles and bullshit with Cross that works better than him, having 15-minute bangers in the ring, because that's just not him.
And I think that's where Scarlett's going to come in and can really play a part, because she can be that weekly person that's there talking and in people's faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I do like that in 2019 into 2020, we've seen the resurgence of the manager in major league, not actually in MLW, but in like major league level professional wrestling, which is something that I think has been hurting the last 10, 15 years or so, is the fact that we didn't have as many managers playing a significant of a role. So I like that we've seen more of that from both companies.
I can definitely say that AEW's played a hand in that, because a lot of that came after AEW. Besides Paul Heyman, there was really no managers in WWE. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they've done a good job. That MVP has been a big star performer. And he's always been a great talker and always had a good presence. Like, the Hurt Business is one of the few things on Raw that people seem drawn to, and that's on him. Like, he's helping giving those guys who don't have a lot of personality traditionally. He's done the role of a manager. He's been like Freddie Blassie. He's given them something extra. So that's been good. Same way that Kenny Omega's not a very good interview. Like, I won't say he's a bad promo, but he's a weird promo.
He's awkward.
Having Don Cal, he's super awkward. Like, that's why he was comfortable being an otaku guy in Japan for so long. He's just different. But having Don Callis out there doing, a tune-up Bobby Heenan essentially works. I think we need more of that. And AEW's doing it. Like, Taz might be my favorite performer in the promotion, to be quite honest with you.
And Ricky Starks, you praise him all the time. Ricky. So
Team Taz might be my favorite thing, and I adore everything about Team Taz. The less Brian Cage speaks, the better. Will Hobbs has superstar written all over him. Taz's kid looks like an absolute killer. Like,
they might have something there. They need to run with it.
Well, he's like 19. Like, he's training. I don't know why he's on TV so soon. They must see something that we don't. Taz has posted pictures. The kid throws suplexes like him, and he's a lot bigger. I think it's crazy. The kid's got this big shock of red hair, and his name is Hook, like Hook, Hook. And Taz was from Red Hook, Brooklyn. And I'm like, holy shit! You named your kid after your town, like, and it kind of works because it's Taz. Like, it's just crazy pro wrestler stuff right there.
Yeah, it's definitely a wrestler story right there.
Yeah.
So I guess the NXT will kind of lead me to my 2 count, which is I do kind of want to touch on the ratings. I know the TV was down, but NXT goes up about 100,000, and AEW goes down about 150,000. Obviously, there's no need to panic. And AEW still won the night, was one of the top 3 in the demo, I believe.
They were third in the demo. It was a bad night overall on TV. Like, let's do this. The AEW audience is one that has been trained that if you tell them, like, they have their million every week. Some of them just watch it on DVR later. Like, if you give them a reason to show up, they're going to show up. We got a bloated 12-man tag that looked silly on paper, and we got Kenny Omega versus Joey Janela for the third time, and like, I don't know, I've seen Kenny Omega beat the snots out of Joey Janela 3 times now, and I think that with AEW they slipped because we were promised a big Kenny Omega reveal last week. We didn't get that, right? I want to talk more about the Impact stuff when we get to it, but they didn't deliver enough, I think, but I think the reason for that is because it was a bad night. They knew it was going to be a bad night. Now, you can sit there and say, yeah, they lost like 150,000 viewers. They're up, but they were up 18% over the same week last year. And that's significant. And they're the only company that's up this week from a year ago. So that tells me, and my theory is that they kind of knew it was going to be a meh week and decided to build for the 30th, where they announced Pac versus Kenny Omega, which is going to be a very good match.
I thought it was Ray Phoenix.
I'm sorry, not Pac. You're right. Ray Phoenix versus Kenny Omega, which is also going to be
because Pac versus Kenny Omega is a whole different ballgame. And I would be much more excited about Pac versus Omega.
Now Kenny Omega versus Ray Phoenix for the Mega Championship was my number 2 match of the year last year. Like, Ray Phoenix, he's one of those, like, a lot of the luchadors just struggle to get that main event spot because they don't connect as well talk wise, verbally, but I think Ray Phoenix is a damn superstar, and every time him and Kenny Omega have had a match, it's been sensational. So I think for your hardcores, who are probably going to be the people watching the night before New Year's, that's a big draw. They did go down. They need to step up because I do think they kind of coasted this week. Like, I looked at the show and I'm like, kind of coasting a little bit. I'm not seeing much to make me go, yeah. Like Cody and Helico, you don't want to keep exposing Sting if you aren't going to do anything with them in immediate. Like, it felt like this Dynamite, it wasn't a bad Dynamite, but it was a very, like, it's okay. It was a Dynamite. It wasn't a bad Dynamite. It was just kind of there. And I think they were, I think last week kind of didn't deliver quite as much on some things that were promised. So I think that had more to do with why the show didn't quite deliver this week. Like I said, I'm not panicking, nor should they. It's going to be bad next week too, because they're not going to start till like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so, next week's going to be rough. Next week they should try a few things and let some people and take some different shots. So
here's interesting, is I do think they took different. I think that they knew what was coming, and if you look at what the show was, is they did a chance to expose a lot of their younger talent. Like, you had a long match with the Acclaim. You had Top Flight going after Chris Jericho and MJF, and now they'll have a match next week. You had a lot of focus on Red Velvet and Ivelisse and Diamante and, like, those kind of players. And, like, they really took the time to expose a lot of their young guns in the promotion. And not to say Jericho and Omega and, like, those guys weren't there, but they took some chances in the in-between segments. And it looks like they're going to do that again. Next, we're going to get the Acclaim versus the Young Bucks for the tag belts. Again, that's not a match that's in doubt. Like, the Young Bucks are clearly going to win, but they're going to work with somebody. Let's see what the Acclaimed has. It's a very divisive gimmick right now. I love the Acclaim, but I'm maybe in the minority on that. I think that we also saw, I forget what else, but that was the matches that stuck out to me.
Private Party and Matt Hardy.
Private Party and Matt Hardy. That was one for this week. That was.
Oh, you're talking about for next week.
Yeah, for next week.
Okay.
This week it was, like I said, the same thing. It was a lot of okay stuff this week, but nothing that was as earth shattering as the previous 2 weeks. Which that's just not going to. You're not going to be able to make ever. That's the Nitro trap, where you try to make every show dynamite. Well, pardon the pun. You try to make every show like explosive and like, oh my god, anything can happen. That's just not realistic. And I go back and I look at some of those old Nitros, and from when the NWO angle first started, you had some weeks where there wasn't a lot of advancement in the NWO stuff. Some weeks you'd have more focus on other things, and I think that's okay. Like, I think we get too worked up into the week to week stuff. Like, I think you have to look at things on the whole, and quite frankly, AEW is up from where they were a year ago.
So, a couple points there. We talk about certain, like, keeping people special and how they shouldn't be wrestling every week. I really feel like AEW does a bad job, especially now that he's not champion, with Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes should not be wrestling random matches like this. That's just my opinion. Like, I feel like that guy should be kept special. He can't challenge for the world title. So you need to keep him special as an attraction wrestler who only wrestles big names for big matches.
I hear what you're saying. He beat Angelico in 4 minutes, which is what we talked about before. Is like you want those short matches sometimes. That's what they did. And then the Taz group came out and Sting came out again. So it was very similar to last week. I don't think they treated it like Cody's going to have a match. Like, I don't know if it advanced the Sting Darby Cody story with Taz, but they at least played into it. And then they did the whole thing with him announcing his wife was pregnant over during the show, which is just the most Cody thing ever.
See, that should have been the only time we saw Cody. Dustin should have been in the ring and took that match. In the ring last week.
Well,
that's fine. He could have wrestled 2 weeks in a row.
It could have been because I think the segment, like the best part of the segment was Hobbs challenging Sting.
Yeah, that was good. That was
Taz
very
backing
good.
Hobbs. Yeah, I like that too because I like when Hobbs being like, this is an old man. Why are we like backing off to him? Which I like that. That was logical. And I like Taz going, no, in time. It made sense logically. The whole sequence made sense logically, but I would rather that have been a Darby match. I would rather Darby have defended the TNT belt against Angelico and the same scenario played out.
Yeah,
personally,
I agree. I just don't think Cody should be wrestling like that. I feel like he should be kept special. I think that's what happened to Jericho during his title reign and after he wasn't champion. Actually, more so after he wasn't champion, he was still on TV every week wrestling or in a long segment.
Because it slipped, but he was drawing ratings for them. But there's a law of diminishing returns, and I think this week was better for the Jericho stuff than it's been. I've been very cold on Jericho for the last 7-8 months. Like I think everything they're doing is treading water with him. I mean, it's almost like he's trying to redo the him and Kevin Owens thing. I hope it doesn't follow the exact same path because they would just be like, the same thing. But yeah, like there's something to be said. Like Moxley's not on the show right now, which I think is a good thing. So when Moxley comes back, it is going to be Moxley's back. The Bucks were just were in the crowd. I think that the Darby was in the crowd. So there are guys they do keep special. That's not the case with Jericho. You're right. Cody, it's not always the case with Cody.
I feel like they do a better job of keeping Darby Allin special than Cody.
They have to keep Darby Allin special because I think the more Darby's a magic trick. I think the more you see Darby, the more you kind of go, oh, okay, I get it. Because Tony Khan was saying in an interview, I listened to this. He said they had him on Dark working a match against a smaller guy, and Tony was, I can't do this because Darby is selling to this enhancement talent because that's Darby Allin's gimmick because he gets his ass kicked. So you have to program Darby Allin with Brian Cage, and like if you see Darby getting his ass kicked every week, you're like, oh, okay, he's really not that great. Like, what I'm saying? Like, Darby is, you have to minimize the amount of time Darby's in the ring to win a count. So they booked Darby to perfection.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job with Darby Allin. Now, my next point about AEW was, where is Scorpio Sky? And what are we doing?
I have no idea. He's in this program with Sean Spears that just like, again, they're not a show that does everything every week. Their roster is too big, and
I agree.
They don't want to do stuff every week. And I appreciate that. I don't think every story needs to be touched on every week. Like that doesn't bother me. Sometimes you watch Game of Thrones, you go 3-4 episodes without knowing what Jon Snow is doing. Mm-hmm. That's okay. Scorpio Sky has been, I don't want to say a missed opportunity, but more should be done. But I don't know where he should be right now, to be honest with you.
They've had 2 opportunities to elevate him. The first was after his match with Chris Jericho for the world title. They had an opportunity to elevate him there. The second was after that promo he cut on Dark.
Yeah, it was a good promo, too.
It was a very good promo. And even if he didn't win that match, which I think he probably should have, I think he should have been the guy, but Darby's not a bad choice at all. But even if he didn't win that match, you still had an opportunity after that to go, okay, I'm not done. I'm coming back after it. But there was no follow-up, at least not to my knowledge.
No, there wasn't. There hasn't been. He's been feuding with Sean Spears, and that's like, I get what they're trying to do, but Sean Spears is just kind of a black hole in this promotion. Like, anything he touches kind of dies. Like, I don't know what it is with him. Like, Tully seems so much more important when he's with FTR than he's with Spears, and when you're trying to get both guys over, very rarely does anyone get over. If you had gone with Scorpio Sky, you could have what Cody wanted with the TNT title, which is defenses every week, something like that. I guess you can't do that with Darby, but putting a belt on Darby is important to establish his character. Like, it all makes sense.
It definitely elevates Darby.
It does, which is needed to be done because Darby's one of the most over people in the promotion. Darby is the future of the promotion. You can't make everybody at once, and I get that, but I don't know why Sky hasn't been made already. And that's one of my big critiques of the promotion in year one. It's too often he's been left behind. Yeah,
I agree. Those were the two times, and we've talked about it, and they've had an opportunity, and obviously it's not like it's over with, like he's done or anything, but I feel like he's got to be one of those guys in 2021 that you just don't forget about and get lost in the shuffle with all these new faces and new names coming in. Like even a guy like Will Hobbs, that's another guy you want to see elevated, but I don't want the Scorpio Sky to get lost in the shuffle.
No, and I agree 100%. And there's times when you elevate people and it's almost too late. Yeah. We've seen that a lot in WWE where guys will get something long after they're over, and it's like, oh, okay, well, we missed the opportunity on that. And it's hard right now too, because when you have a real crowd, you can listen to what the crowd wants. When you don't have a real crowd, a promoter is kind of left to do what they think is right in the moment. And you don't have that chance for the crowd to go, no, this is what we want, which is what makes wrestling different than any form of entertainment, is the crowd does steer the ship in a lot of ways. And 2020 has been a year where we haven't had that. So, and in some ways it works good because you can tell long-form storytelling. I think WWE's done a great job with Roman Reigns in that regard. Mm-hmm. I think this heel turns work better because of the lack of crowd. But at the same time, I think Adam Page is another one that was red hot before the pandemic and super cooled off since.
No, you bring up a good point, and it is unfair to, maybe not unfair, but I don't
think it's unfair. I mean, I think the criticism is there, and it's warranted. I think it's unfair to say, why isn't AEW's women's division as good as NXT's? It's well, because the freaking players aren't there. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. I just you can't push everybody, and I have to keep that in perspective. And everybody, and right now where they are, they have a story in mind. They have guys slotted where they need to be. I just hope he's slotted somewhere, I guess is my main thing. I just hope he's slotted somewhere.
I agree. In my perfect world, the belt leaves Darby rather soon, because I do think he's a better character in Chase. Put it on Starks, put it on KH, whoever, and then let Scorpio Sky be the TNT champion. That's what I would like to see in 2021. I don't know. I'm not booking the company, so I can't tell you. But that's where I think he can make a difference, because it seems like he's always in their plans to be a main player, because he's always showcased in advertising and plans. He's always showcased. But when it comes time to actual booking stuff, he falls by the wayside for things. And again, they signed a lot of talent this year, a lot of talent. But like you said, when you're pushing up, you can't push everybody, and sometimes, they push. I don't know, man. It's tough.
And SCU seems like that's a good team to feud with Team Taz. It's just that's a nice team for somebody like Will Hobbs to work with a guy like Daniels and Kazarian, two older vets. That seems like a nice kind of matchup for them anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that idea. I think that'd be a good use of all of them. Taz could probably get something promo wise out of Scorpio too, kind of get a fire lit under him. I think that would work. I
would like to see one more person added to Team Taz, and then Scorpio kind of rolled into that thing on Cody's side. Personally.
That would be good. Yeah,
that's what I would like to see, because it gets him in a main event position, because that is a main event program right now.
Oh, we've established anything with Cody is a main event
program.
Yep.
So because of this, they've elevated Starks, they've elevated Hobbs, right? Two guys, none of the Taz guys were in the promotion a year ago, so all those guys were elevated just by being around Cody. It would be and Sting by proxy. It would be nice to have Scorpio get that rub a little bit too.
Yeah, I am with that.
I can't argue anything you just said.
For a 3 count, JD, you got anything for the 3 count, or do you want me to lay it down?
Yeah, let's talk Dragon Gate, because I just wrote a big piece about it.
Okay.
Dragon Gate is let Let me educate you on Dragon Gate a little bit. Dragon Gate is a more lucha-inspired promotion than a Strong Style or a King's Road Japanese promotion. The guys in Dragon Gate typically are a little bit smaller, shorter, and like size-wise than you might see in New Japan or even the old All, or even All Japan. The action is fast-paced, like innovate, like guys that came out of Dragon Gate. I'll give you Shingo Takagi, Akira Tozawa, Shima, Pac. Like these are guys that came up through Dragon Gate. And I've been getting into the promotion over the last several months. I listened, shout out to the Open the Voice Gate podcast. That's where I kind of did my education. And this month I actually bought the Dragon Gate network, $15 on a month, because I wanted to watch their Open the Voice Gate or the Final Gate show. Everything is Open the Gate. The main title in Dragon Gate is the Open the Dream Gate Championship. Their cruiserweight title is the Open the Brave Gate Championship. The tag belts are the Open the Twin Gate, and the six-man so the Open the Triangle Gate. It's very different. It's very different.
It sounds very different.
But I'll tell you this: a lot of they're in the process right now. This weekend they're going to be doing this generational war thing, because like Japanese wrestling, you get a lot of faction things, and right now they've got like this 3-way faction rivalry that's evolved into a 4-way faction rivalry, and one of them has to disband permanently at the show. And the show's being headlined by their new champion Shun Skywalker, who's this guy. He's a high flyer. He's got this silver mask on. He's freaking awesome. He is unreal awesome. And he's facing his former tag team partner Ben Kay, who's the guy who beat Pac for the same title a year ago. And these guys were tag team partners, and now they're both leading different factions. Like Ben Kay's leading the Dragon Gate faction, and Shun Skywalker's leading a group called Masquerade that he literally just founded on the last 2 shows. So it's an interesting promotion. And they've got some kids that are literally 19 and 20 that look like they've been doing this for 10 years. Like SB Kento is 19 years old. He's the co-holder of the Triangle Gate belt. This kid is unbelievable. Like personality and work. Like Dragon Gate, it's more American booking wise, because you get a lot of like the villain faction's called RED. And they're very NWO-ish. Sometimes like these things will end in big disqualifications because like 6 dudes will just run out and beat the crap out of everybody in the ring. Like, but it works. It works better in this company than it would in weekly US TV. So I'm really enjoying Dragon Gate right now.
How are they able to keep their talent from like New Japan?
They don't Well, here's what's different. Like Shingo Takagi, Shingo was their biggest star for a long time. Shingo and Akira Tozawa.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes guys leave, so you build new ones. And what's nice about the Japanese systems, we talked about this last week, is I compared the WWE PC to the dojo system in Japan. Every major Japanese company has a dojo, and they train their next generation. The new stars are out there training the young stars. And that's what this is too. Is like they're pushing a lot of guys, because they got a lot of guys. They got Ultimo Dragon in there who's in his 50s, and Naruki Doi who's in his 50s, and like Masaki Mochizuki who's in his 50s. Like they got old guys, but then they got these kids, these guys in their early 20s who are recently coming out of the Dragon System program and are ready to go. And is there a chance they go to New Japan? Maybe. But here's what's different about. I hate to come off as like, white-splaining something, but it's just different in Japan. Like if you're in a company, usually you stay with that company. Like when guys leave, it takes a lot to get people to leave companies. That's like what Misawa did in 2000 when he formed Noah. Was like shocking because everybody left, but the guy they were loyal to died. When Baba dies, loyal to Misawa, they're not loyal to Baba's widow, who they all hated. So it made sense. Like loyalty is I sound like such a douche saying this, but it's true. Like loyalty is important in that company. It takes a lot for people to leave. Like you have to really want to go. Like Tozawa really wanted to go. Shingo, he needed to do something else and had to go. And you don't see it as much. Like I would love, me, I rave about Kenta Miyahara all the time. Mm-hmm. I would love to see Kenta Miyahara in New Japan. I just don't think it's going to happen. Like he's the man in all of Japan. And, it's the second, maybe third company in the country, but, he's the man there, and he's loyal to the people that trained him. So that's just the way it goes.
sounds very similar to like a Nick Aldis here in NWA. He seems very loyal to the NWA.
Yeah, and it's different. It'd be like that loyalty of Nick Aldis if Billy Corgan had trained him.
It's a much deeper relationship and deeper bond.
And that's why it's not just like a performance center; it's a dojo. You know, like they're taking you from the ground up, and that's not saying that like it's all like that. Okada trained in a different dojo. Like Okada's not technically a New Japan born True Blood. You know, like he can't. I forget where Okada came from, but I mean he was somewhere else and made his way to New Japan. You know, Tanahashi, you know, New Japan Trueborn. You know, a big reason why Shingo doesn't get that world title, that IWGP title push, is because he's a Dragon Gate guy.
Oh,
you know,
huh? I know. Well, I didn't know that, and now that you kind of put that together, huh? That's interesting.
How many guys in that roster are better than Shingo? Honest to God, not a whole lot.
Maybe three or four.
Maybe, yeah. I'll go with that.
You know, and that's that's just kind of depends on how you feel about certain people, because you could argue more or you could argue less. So you know,
good. But we all agree Shingo Takagi is awesome and has been awesome for a long time, but he's Dragon Gate guy. You know, and people don't like hearing it, but it's the truth. So I mean, like, is there a chance that SB Kento or Hip Hop Kakuta, these young stars they have, Keisuke Okuta's, oh my God, Keisuke Okuta's awesome. Is there a chance one of these guys winds up in All Japan someday or a New Japan someday? Yeah, it could happen. Could happen. But you know, the odds are better if they stay with Dragon Gate.
Okay.
So open the Brave Gate show this weekend. Or I'm sorry, no, the Brave Gate. Final Gate show this weekend. Highly recommended if you have a chance to check it out on the Dragon Gate Network system app. I'd advise it. It's $15 for a month, and the action is very different than what you'll find in New Japan or Noah or All Japan. Closer to like a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, or closer to like a CMLL. I'd say like somewhere between that.
So you're gonna get a lot of high impact moves.
High impact, a lot of high flying, a lot of hard hitting. You're gonna get like deep, thick continuity storytelling levels. Like, it's a different promotion, but it's a lot of fun, man. Dragon Gate's a lot of fun.
Okay. Hey, listen. JD is all about the Japanese wrestling. So if he recommends something over there, make sure you definitely check that out.
I get frustrated with American wrestling sometimes, so you got to cleanse your palate.
Yeah, it's a nice little palate cleanser. And obviously next time we'll talk about New Japan, because I really do want to dive into what they're doing and what's going on with that.
Next week we will talk about Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because there's a lot to talk about and break down there.
Too much for one show.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we are going to get to the meat of our course, the main course of what we got, the showdown part of our show. Kenny Omega, Rich Swann, which champion should come out on top? We'll be right back.
This is Defy Life.
Welcome to the Defy Life podcast. Join JR, Thomas, and Al as they take on topics in sports, politics, current events, family, and more. Insightful, hilarious, always unique. New episode every Wednesday. Powered by the Defy Life Podcast Network. Listen at DefyLifePods.com and everywhere else your favorite podcasts are available. If you're not rocking with Defy Life, what's your life about?
All right, and we are back. It is time for the main course, but before that, JD said you have something for me. What you got?
Yeah, check your DMs right now on Twitter.
Okay.
I just sent you a shot from the last Dragon Gate show.
Oh wow!
Leading into that is the arena, which I would call more like a church.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they perform in a cathedral?
Yeah, this is cool. Like, it is so well lit. It's stained glass windows in the background. Like, I don't know enough to tell you exactly where it places off the top of my head, because I'm still learning the promotion. But I turned on the show this week, and I was like jaw dropped when I saw that.
I will definitely make sure to post this to the Showdown Pro and the Take a Knee feed when I post the show, so you guys can see this picture as well.
Cool, right?
No, this is awesome. Like this, this should definitely be their like go-to or their signature type thing. Is this something they do often, or is this the first time?
No, I think it's something it's part of their touring schedule. I believe Justin said they're based out of Kobe, which I believe is north of Tokyo. Let me double check. Justin's going to yell at me if I don't.
I do like the glass and everything like that. That's sweet, man.
South. I'm wrong. Kobe. I was way wrong. Kobe is way south of. It's kind of near Kyoto, kind of where Nakamura's from. It's between Hiroshima and Kyoto, kind of near Osaka too, where Asuka's from. So yeah, located a little bit to the southwest of Tokyo. So different. It runs out of a different area of the country. So yeah, cool place, man.
No, that's very cool. I really like that backdrop.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah, it's cool.
I had to stop what I was doing and grab that screen cap. I was so blown away by how sweet it looked. So let's get to the meat of it. What are we doing?
So one thing that we talked about last episode was, you had mentioned that you think they're eventually going to lead to a Rich Swann, Kenny Omega match, and all signs seem to be pointing towards that. We had a beatdown, we had a confrontation, and now we have a match lined up, a 6-man tag match. And so I think we both agree that we have to, or at least we assume that the smart money is on a champion versus champion match, Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann at some point, somewhere, either on AEW, on Impact, or on a pay-per-view. And we're going to talk about who should win that match and who should come out on top in this feud between the two. I think there's a case to be made for both. And, we can kind of take this step by step and, kind of break it down as far as who should win what. So before we get to the eventual one-on-one match, let's start with this 6-man tag.
Yeah, this 6-man tag broke out in the end of Impact this week. I watched Impact for the second week in a row. It is just not my promotion, man.
It's a tough watch. It's a tough watch. There's some good things there. Like I don't know if he's everybody's cup of tea. I like Moose, and there's a few I don't like what they're doing Ethan Page, and there's some stuff that's really a tough watch.
He's leaving, so it doesn't really matter a whole lot.
He's really good.
Yeah, he's probably going to get WWF money or WWE money, to be honest with you. So
he'll fit in there.
Yeah, he will. He could do. He's a good performer, and he can do anything. I think he's a better fit in WWE than I do in AEW, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, it's as we were talking about the ratings and stuff again. Impact had a lot of people paying attention last week, and a lot of people this week were kind of like, oh.
They had a big opportunity last week.
Yeah, and then the show was Impact, man. It's just, I wish it was better. I really, really do. The highlight of the show for me has been Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone making fun of him.
Like, and that's part of my thing. Like, what is the? Because Tony Khan seems like he has a good history or knowledge of wrestling history as far as how angles win and whatnot. So my question is, what's the end game of this, of you just coming on their TV show and just belittling them? Like, how are they going to get their comeuppance on you? Are you the heel in this? Like, I know they don't believe in baby faces and heels and stuff, but like, what? I don't understand like what the goal of that is.
My thought when this happened was that it would be like when Vince McMahon went to Memphis in '93. Before the Mr. McMahon character came out. Like, he came on Jerry Lawler's promotion in Memphis, and he was kind of the proto Mr. McMahon. Like, a good 6 years before that happened in WWE, he was doing that in Memphis. And it seems like I thought that's what Tony was going to do, and then Impact would be the heel promotion on AEW, and it would kind of flip. They haven't even acknowledged Impact on Dynamite. That's been weird to me. Part of me is like, again, it's only 2 weeks in, and like it's only 2 weeks in, but it's like they're not even talking about it. Like, Tony Schiavone made this funny line. He goes, Kenny Omega, he was a huge impact. He made a huge, how do you put this? He made a huge splash on Impact. He took them from 1 viewer to 6.
See what I'm saying? Like what is Impact getting out of this?
I have no idea. Unless Tony Khan actually unless these are real things and he actually is paying them for the spot. It just right now it's coming off like they're letting Kenny Omega do Don Callis a favor because he beat up the world champion from their promotion and reteamed with Gallows and Anderson, and he said we're reforming Bullet Club. That's news, but I mean, like, AEW didn't really follow up on it. So I mean, I think that's hurt both brands. The fact that, you know, AEW is all over Impact, and Impact doesn't have anything to do with AEW right now. I don't know if it can stay like that forever, but like, I don't know, man. It's odd to me. Like this, and again, this is a bad week for TV. Impact or AEW had shitty ratings, and they were the number 3 TV show on last night. So it's like, well, why would you want to go all out if you knew you're going to have bad ratings anyway? You know, I don't know. Like, I can sort of justify that to myself, but another part of me is like, are you going to acknowledge what's going on in the other channel? Like, it's weird to me.
And I think
but at the same time,
oh, my bad. Go ahead, continue.
I see. At the same time, I talked about how Kenny had this thing in AAA, and Kenny went out and basically said he wants to wrestle El Hijo del Vikingo, who's fantastic. Vikingo's fantastic. Like, Kenny's like, I'm going to defend the title against him. So it's like, okay, so now you've got 3 programs on 3 different shows going on. Like, I think we expected this to be more like, everything would converge on AEW, when what it really looks like at the moment is like Kenny Omega's being Ric Flair in 1982 on 5 different territories doing 5 different things as the NWA World Champion.
I think that might be what everything you just laid out might be even more reason why I lean towards Rich Swann winning the match, and why I think they at the very least they win this 6-man, because all this and then to lose on your pay-per-view with your champion, I can't see that. I see Rich Swann getting the pin, not on Omega, but I see Rich Swann getting the pin.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is Kenny Omega's going to pin Chris Sabin.
Oh, wow. I get it, but man, well then if that happens, Rich Swann has to pin Kenny Omega in their one-on-one match.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
See that? I don't get that. I don't understand. I don't understand the logic in that. And obviously, like you said, we're 2 weeks in, and you know we're predicting and projecting, but I just where it seems they're projecting to go and what you're saying, that doesn't make sense for him not to get one of those victories.
So I think it does if the idea is that so back in the let me break down this. Back in the territories, the NWA World Champion would come into a territory, let's say Southeastern, which would basically be like Alabama, Northern Florida, stuff like that. And he would wrestle their top guy, be it their regional champion or the top babyface or whatever. And there would be like a big angle that would lead up to it, and they would have this match, and it would always go to either a 60-minute time limit draw or some type of schmoz finish where the local hero looked great but didn't get to keep the title. And then the world champion moves on to Texas. Right? And it was always, they got their shot at the world belt, but then something happened. Like, very famously, Kerry Von Erich had a shot. They had this months-long program with Flair. Kerry Von Erich had the shot in the cage. Michael P.S. Hayes was the referee. Hayes and Kerry Von Erich get into a fight. Kerry won't take a cheap victory, so Terry Gordy slams the cage door on Kerry Von Erich's head, and it starts the Freebird Von Erich feud, right? So Kerry didn't win the title, but you come out of it with a strong program. That's how it used to be done back in the day, and that is very possible. That's what they're going to do with Kenny Omega. The world's a lot smaller than that now. You know, back in the day, if you lived in Alabama, unless you read the After mags, you didn't know what was going on in Texas or in Florida or in New York. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like the world champion, like Ric Flair joked about that he never won. Ric Flair's like, I had the world title 16 times and I didn't win any matches. I don't know if you can do that today. When Kenny Omega showed up, now they haven't addressed this on AEW, but when Kenny Omega showed up on Impact, he said he's going to become a collector. And like we all, especially as comic book fans, we all took to that and ran. Like there's this great, he compared the Impact, but he compared the AEW belt to Action Comics 1, which we all know, most little comic ever. He compared the Impact title to Spider-Man 1. Now you can lean that as Amazing Fantasies 15, a book worth a lot, or the Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane that's worth $15. So depending on your view of Impact, it's a nice little double entendre.
Mm-hmm.
If the idea is Kenny Omega is going to be a belt, there's two ways I've seen this program can be. Because he's already got the AAA Mega Championship. He's held it for a year. He's got the AEW World Championship. But he's not... Because he won in the AAA show. He didn't have the AEW belt. He went on Dynamite this week, didn't have the AAA belt. So, if the idea is him becoming a belt collector, he's got to beat Swann and then carry those belts into another promotion. Or show up on Dynamite with looking like Ultimo Dragon with all these belts. If that's only an Impact program and Rich Swann beats Kenny Omega, I don't know if that helps AEW. You know what I'm saying? Because the AEW is doing Impact the favor. Because Omega is bringing extra eyeballs onto the Impact product. The eyeballs coming are seeing what Impact is all about and not liking it. That's just the truth. The people checking out Impact, very few of them are like, man, I really like this promotion. So, unless Kenny Omega gets to hold 10 different belts from different promotions, what's the point?
I think you have your built-in reason. And one thing the AEW you have to give them credit for is they don't do a lot of schmoz finishes as far as run-ins and big distractions and stuff like that. They
except when Kenny Omega wins the title, but yes.
Well, yeah. Well, but then even to that, you didn't see it. You don't see it that often.
No,
you know what I mean?
That's why it works.
Yeah. So that's why it works. I think whenever we do get that match, because they're gonna slow burn this, I think that's when you get Mox's big return.
Yeah, I think we will get that. I think Moxley. I think because we're in the middle of having a long Kenny Omega run, and the only guy right now I see in a position to take the belt off of him would be Moxley down the line. There's just nobody else in the promotion that's world champion contender right now. Maybe in a year I feel differently, but right now it's only Moxley. But based on that is you have opportunity to have a long title reign with Kenny Omega. And what I think here's my idea is I think that if you have Kenny Omega with 10 different titles and have him showing up with 10 different titles, he can lose 10 different matches, and put over a bunch of people from a bunch of different promotions.
This is true.
So if Swann loses now, he can win it back later.
Or someone else.
I think it should be Swann because Swann, having watched the show the last couple weeks, Swann's the best guy in the company.
See, I like Moose, man. I think Moose is that guy.
I don't think Moose is that guy.
Okay.
Moose gets in Moose's way too much. I don't think Moose is that good. It depends on what you want. Do you want a guy who's good in the ring, or do you want, a guy who can look the part a little bit? Because I think Moose looks the part, but I don't think Moose is a very good promo. I don't think Moose is very good in the ring. I think Swann's got it. I think Swann's come a long way, actually, since his WWE days, to be honest with you.
I will say his match with Chris Bay was
great.
Fantastic.
I had it on at the same time as I had because of course in the pro wrestling world, you have to have that match on at the same time as Kenny Omega and Laredo Kid. I was like, of course this is going to happen now. I've been watching both these shows, and what hurt in my mind, and it was not even their fault. What hurt Bay and Swann was the Impact presentation. It just didn't come off as important as Omega and Laredo came off in AAA. And it's nothing to do with the performers, because it was, like I said, you got one place where Hugo's going crazy every time, brutal, every time something happens, and you've got high action. Yeah, and you got Josh Matthews with his monotone voice.
Thank goodness for Madison Rayne keeping us informed.
Yeah, she's the better commentator.
Oh, by miles. By miles.
Yeah. I think that, I'm not a Josh Matthews hater, but just having both shows on at the same time, you just saw the difference. Especially, they both were in the empty arena setting, but in that Impact empty arena, man, you hear it. You hear it. You hear the emptiness. Didn't hear it in the AAA one. They presented, the action just far blew away, the lack of crowd engagement. I forgot there was no crowd. Whereas in Impact, I have a hard time forgetting there's no crowd. And that's nothing to do with Bay and Swann, because I think they had a good match.
Yeah, they had a really good match. Chris Bay showed me a lot. That was
Yeah.
one of the first times I really seen a good, like a long match of his, and he really impressed me.
He's a young guy too. He's a guy who could be, if he stays in Impact, he could be the future of Impact. He's a guy who, whenever his contract's coming up, WWE and AEW are going to throw a lot of money at him. Bay was also the Super Juniors too. Only had one match, unfortunately, but it's really a breakout year for him. Impact's the one that gave him a bit of a spotlight. He's carried it. Like, I don't know how long that contract is with Impact, but whenever he gets his shot, man, that kid's gonna make some money.
They'd be smart to re-sign him. I hope he keeps this little gimmick he has of performing in two different companies on the same night. I think that's a pretty cool gimmick.
Well, we had a lot of that.
Well, we did.
Rush,
yeah, we did.
Leo Rush did that. Tasha Steelz did that. Everyone's taping stuff, so you had some opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Only one of those programs is actually live. So back to what we were saying though. I think the money right now is to go all in with Kenny Omega as like a modern version of a Ric Flair and putting not just the belt but a bunch of belts on him, because that's how you can differentiate him from Jericho and from Moxley. Is just have him be the the champion. Give him like several titles. Like, you don't want to have him like winning some, like what Austin Aries did. Austin Aries held a bunch of belts, but most of them were like Bush League belts in places I never even heard of. Like, it would be great. Let me fantasy book for him.
Okay.
Let's say Kenny Omega does win the Impact belt. Let's just say for shits and giggles, he gets the TNA belt too. Let's say he's able to claim, I don't know, PWG, something like a couple other decent belts. Like,
let's throw Ring of Honor in there too while we're at it.
Let's just have fun. Let's say Ring of Honor. And Kota Ibushi's going to win that Wrestle Kingdom match in 2 weeks. You tell me, when fans are allowed to come back, you tell me what will draw better in Madison Square Garden than the Golden Explosion. Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi for the IWGP World Heavyweight title with Kenny with a shit ton of belts.
Kota Ibushi would have to win that match, though.
Whatever the plans are.
He can't. He can't finally win the big one and then lose the big one.
It depends on when it is. It depends on when they do it. Like, I'm not saying they do this in February. In my mind, they shouldn't think about doing this till summer, earliest, like late summer at the earliest. And that's even real. Who knows what reality is going to be without we're getting a vaccine? But whenever we're allowed to have a crowd again, the only thing I think that could really sell out, and really like compete would be Kenny Omega versus Kota Ibushi, because the story is already there. And now you have both of them. Like, if you have a Hunter Kenny Omega with all these belts, now he's coming back for the IWGP belt versus Kota Ibushi, his best friend who finally won it. Like, that's a story. Can that happen? I don't know. But that's what I thought they were building to at first. Now I'm not so sure. I'm not sure now. But again, it's only been 2 weeks.
I like the belt collector idea, and I like that idea. There's a lot of different ways you could come at it.
There is. I mean, like, it depends on, if you're right, if Kenny Omega goes into Impact and puts over Rich Swann as the Impact World Champion, you basically just killed Kenny Omega.
See, but I don't think you do that if you have a Mox return and causes the loss. I think that's a reason for it.
That is a very Impact finish. I would say I hate that finish, but having watched the show, I saw so many distraction finishes.
Well, you do it on Impact, obviously.
That's right. Yes. But that doesn't, Impact gets a little bit of that where you get, he beat Kenny Omega. But I mean, like, and if AEW tries to ignore it, I think that the AEW fan knows, right? It's not 1983. They're going to know. And it's like, it is going to take Omega down, especially Omega is pretty hot right now. Like we talked about his drawing ability. This is like, as of right now, Impact 2 nights ago was Impact. It has 300,000 views for that segment. The next highest segment is Ethan Page doing the Karate Man gimmick at 70.
Which is ridiculous.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Kenny Omega is drawing eyes.
Yeah.
But it's just, because of the way Impact formats their show, they give you so many opportunities to actually not watch their show. Actually, I take that back. The next highest, the second highest rated YouTube viewed thing is on the Impact from last week. Tony Khan's commercial.
Well, there you go. That's not a good sign.
No, it's not. But that's on Impact. That's not on AEW.
No.
People people checked out Impact. And is the Impact Women's Division as good as people say it is, or is that just something we say? Because I'll be honest with you, those matches I saw, they were definitely better than what I've seen most weeks on Dynamite, but I've heard people say it's as good as the WWE Women's Division. Well,
and you know, I don't remember exactly who was wrestling, but I don't think it was Jordan Grace, Tenille Dashwood.
It wasn't. It was Tenille. Tenille was on there. Tenille's not very good. But
she's she's okay.
She's fine. Yeah, she's exactly.
She's okay. You know, she's
okay.
Yeah, she's not bad.
She's not bad. Why? When you had here now, this is what Impact did very, very poorly. They had all these eyes on them, and what did they do? They just put out a show of Impact, and they did the dumbass Johnny Bravo murdered thing, where Larry D had to win his. You know, if he wins his match, he's not going to be prosecuted for murder. And I guess you got a bunch of people from AEW who are like, come watch this. Like, what?
Yeah. You gotta change your format for that episode. You know you're gonna have extra eyeballs. This should have been showcases for talent.
They should have been. They started out, I believe, they started out with I think it was Chris Sabin and I forget. Oh, Ethan Page. And I'm like, oh no, Josh Alexander. That's what it was 2 weeks ago. It was Chris Sabin, Josh Alexander. Good match. Empty crowd, took away from it a little bit, but still a good match. The rest of the show, man, fucking nightmare. The fucking nightmare. Like anything that's not the Motor City Machine Guns and the Bullet Club guys is a hard watch on Impact for me. And Swann stuff is good too.
Yeah, Swann stuff's pretty good.
Yeah, that's fine. But like the rest of it, ugh.
Well, that's what I don't understand is why you're not like Deonna Purrazzo. Like there should be showcases.
Yeah, they wrestled in their women's tag team tournament. It's like part of me wonders how long this was in the plan for. Like, because I'm like, why didn't you put because again they tape these things ahead. If they knew they were going to do this, why didn't they just cannibalize it and just put their best stuff?
Right.
Like if you knew they were going to have, because they had 750,000 views between between Access and Twitch and YouTube and whatever. Mm-hmm. Like they had a lot of views. They had a lot of people, more than they've had in a long time, sampling their product. And they didn't do a very good job selling me on it. Like I have to watch Alicia Edwards be annoying for 5 minutes, and Sami Callihan talking about him hitting Eddie Edwards with a baseball bat 3 years ago.
I've never been as high on Sami Callihan as everybody else.
Sami Callihan is overrated as all hell.
Yeah, he's never been one for me that I've just been like, I can't wait to see him. Like some people are just like enamored with him, and he's just not for me.
Like he calls himself the Draw, and I'm like, draw what? What are you drawing? Like you were lucky before Kenny Omega showed up to get 150,000 viewers. Like it's just Impact's in a bad spot. They need AEW, quite frankly, and AEW is doing them a favor. It feels like AEW knows they're doing them a favor, and they're making sure they know they're doing them a favor. So it's like, so are you really doing them a favor? Like I can't believe this is all.
That's how it comes off to me.
It totally comes off.
Yep, just how you put it. It
totally comes off like that. But that can't be all it is, because then it's WWE shit, and that's like, okay, now you're doing everything that you said you weren't gonna be. Mm-hmm. Like, I need more. And again, it's the second week of this angle, and it's the Christmas holiday, terrible time for TV viewing. It really is a terrible time for TV viewing. Like you lose 200, they lost 200,000 or 150,000 viewers, and only moved down one spot in the ratings. What does that tell you about how the night was with TV? You know, mm-hmm. not a good TV night. So maybe they're smart by holding back some of their cards. But
they got three big shows they've been hyping. So
they better. And you know what? To be fair, when they hype a show, they've delivered. So
they have. I will give them that. They have delivered.
I need to see something of this. Like, tell me you're talking. Like, this is all fans really want. And again, if they they did this thing with Impact, so they let people's imaginations run away with them. Now, if they don't deliver, they have no one to blame but themselves, because they have to learn to manage expectations.
I think one of these three shows is the perfect time to have a Bullet Club, formation show up on AEW.
I agree. What I would like to see is Jon Moxley calling out Kenny Omega, then getting his ass kicked by Kenta. That's what I would like to see. But I'm like, I'm a fan. Like, I'm a wrestling.
That's a great idea, though. It's a great idea.
But there's so many moving parts that have to make that work. But now you set the standard where you can make those parts move, because that's the expectation level now.
And Bullet Club's so big too.
Exactly, because that's the whole thing of Bullet Club is we rule the wrestling world. And they've been saying that for 5 years. Well, now you've got the chance. You've got the chance.
To your collector idea, I think to that point, if they were to do that, I would almost even take it another level, and I would have somebody from Bullet Club in all of those promotions kind of representing Kenny when he's not there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what. Yeah, I agree. Add someone else so you could be your because Kenny can't be on every show. He's put together a hell of a schedule so far since becoming the AEW World Champion, because he's been 3 different promotions in 3 different countries. Impact being a Canadian company, so he's done shows in Canada, he's done shows in the U.S., and he's done shows in Mexico, and he's only been the AEW World Champ for 2 weeks, so that's pretty impressive, really.
So when is he quarantining?
He's not going to be for a long time. He can't go. You can go between the U.S. and Mexico. There's no laws. We have no quarantine laws. Japan's a different story. You notice who was not on the last 2 AEW shows, which means he will not be on the next AEW show, because they tape 2 weeks and take 2 weeks off. They take 2 weeks and then take a week off. They tape 2 days and take a week off. Excuse me. Easy for me to say.
Who was that?
John Moxley. Was not.
But that makes sense. He won't be on. I don't think he'll be on for a little bit.
Nor should he. Now, again, my Booker mind let John Moxley better be in freaking Japan right now, quarantining.
Tony Khan's very adamant about saying he's not going to be at Wrestle Kingdom.
What I tell you? What I tell you on Twitter?
You said you don't believe him.
I don't believe a damn thing any wrestling promoter says ever. 2 years ago, Vince McMahon said, "You were in charge of the show." I'm not in charge of the show. I ain't booking that. You know what I'm saying? They all lie. This is what they. But nor do I expect them to tell me the truth ever. Wrestling promoters lie. It's what they do. I want him to lie. Tell me John Fox is not working Wrestle Kingdom. So when he shows up, I'm surprised. You know.
So before we kind of wrap this old showdown portion up, let's have a little fun. Let's do a little fantasy here. I want you to swap the titles. So
sure.
Crown a new Impact Champion, Impact Tag Champion, Impact Women's Champion using AEW wrestlers, and crown an AEW Champion, Tag Champion, TNT Women's Champion with Impact wrestlers.
This is unique. I like this. Okay, let's start. So what am I doing first?
Let's start with the ladies.
Okay. So if I'm taking someone from the AEW roster and making them Impact Women's Champion, Thunder Rosa. Let's go all out.
Great call.
She's awesome. Her and Britt Baker's thing, as long as they stop talking about being pretty, it's really good. I actually liked the beatdown. I liked her dumping water on Rose's makeup. I thought that looked good. The segment worked out really well. I like the feed to be a little bit more meaty, but I did like the beatdown. But yeah, Rose is great.
This is a big opportunity for Britt Baker to really show what she's got in the ring with Thunder Rosa.
Yeah. I don't know if she's up to the task.
Hey, Thunder Rosa's going to lay it in on her. She better be ready.
Yes, she is. And I hope Rose is smart enough to work with Britt and understand, do the working aspect of it and help carry Britt to a really good match, because they could have something. They really could. They could,
or they could clash really bad.
Absolutely. There's no in between.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an in between. It's going to be a great match, or it's going to be it's not going to be good.
All right, now I got to take a knockout and put her in the AEW Women's Division. I'll put my favorite. I like Jordynne Grace.
Yeah, great call. Great call with her.
She's awesome. What about you? If you had your choice, who would you go with?
Oh man, so I was going to say Jordynne Grace, but I won't use her. I would actually go with Taya Valkyrie. I think she could be a good heel AEW Women's Champion and be a good kind of foil for Shida to kind of go after and reclaim her title.
I could see that.
As far as the Impact title, man, I'd probably start over and start fresh and just let the monster be the monster and go with Nyla Rose and book her the way she's supposed to be booked. I
agree. Make her like what Kong was there back in the day.
Exactly.
Promise she's not as good as Kong, but yeah, I agree. I think in theory that's the idea.
Yeah, she's and have Vicky Guerrero. Well, she doesn't need Vicky Guerrero, but Vicky Guerrero can be there, just kind of being the mouthpiece for her.
Yeah, I agree. I don't hate that. All right, let's do the tags.
Okay.
So if I'm gonna take someone from AEW and put the Impact tag belts on them, I am gonna go young and go Top Flight.
Oh wow! Okay.
Big fan. I got to see Airwolf work on the MLW pay-per-view last year, Darius, and back when he was a masked wrestler working as the Airwolf character. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of these kids, man. I think they people keep calling them the Young Bucks. I think they're a little crisper than the Young Bucks were at that time. I think the Young Bucks would agree with you. Like, they're 21 and 19. They're freaking good. They're still green, but I mean, they're talented, and they got to show a little bit of personality on the mic. Darius got a little personality on him. I think there's something, and I think an Impact they could develop, and be the centerpiece act.
Especially working with some of those veteran teams they got there too, like Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah, I want to see that match. I want to see Machine Guns versus Top Flight. Put that on my list.
Okay, I like that.
And then an Impact team. Oh, who else are you going to go with right now? You got to see the Good Brothers.
Yeah, I mean that's I think that's a match that's got to happen at some point. The Good Brothers versus the Bucks.
Yeah, I would like to see Gallows and Anderson take those AEW belts off them. I mean, it's like, it would be kind of insulting because there's such a deep division there, and you put them on the guys that are from the other company. But for storyline purposes, it would work for a short run. It
would fit the story as well.
Yeah. What do you think?
So as far as the Impact titles, I think FTR I think that's an easy choice. I think they would do wonders in Impact, and they could bring some relevancy to those tag titles. Well, Good Brothers have done that, but they could bring a little more relevancy to those tag titles.
I agree.
As far as the AEW tag titles, if you'd asked me this a month ago, I would have told you the North. But Motor City Machine Gun seems like a nice pick. They could work with a lot of those teams on the division, up and down the card. And then versus the Lucha Brothers would be a lot of fun.
Oh, man.
Pride and Powerful would be a lot of fun. There's a lot of teams over there. So I go with the Machine Guns.
Yeah, the Machine Guns and the Bucks had fun matches a decade ago, and the Bucks have gotten a lot better since then. So I imagine that would be a really good match today.
And like you said, and even like a team like a young team like Private Party, I think they would be able to put on a good match with them too.
Yeah, Sabian and Frankie would know. Frankie, because Jesus Christ, Sabian and Shelley. Sorry, his freaking Twitter always throws me off. Like, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin would have a really good match with those guys.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go with the TNT title.
This is where it gets sticky. It's like, so who? Oh, no, I'll tell you who I put the TNT belt on. If I look at Impact's roster up and down, I would go youth and I would put it on Chris Bay.
Oh, okay. Sticking with the youth. Now, is Bay coming in as a heel or a babyface?
Babyface. Good babyface.
Oh, okay. Fighting champion babyface.
I think Chris Bay is that good right now, and I think he's learning that crowd connection. He hasn't quite figured that out yet. If he got to play for some crowds, I think he would figure it out quick because he's got some charisma.
Okay. What about the X Division title?
Well, I'm going to avoid the guys that have already had that X Division title.
Okay.
Because there's a few of them in that company. So if I'm going to put an X Division guy, Ricky Starks.
Huh. Ricky Starks. He's so not the X Division it would work.
That's why I would do it.
He's so not the X Division that it would work.
The X Division is always the guys who just work, right? And you put Ricky Starks with that, now you got the guy, because Ricky can work, but he's not like a high flyer. He's not super athletic, but he'll talk him in. And he can make people look good. Like, he'll take all that shit,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Especially he would definitely have Team Taz with him. So you'd have to go through all of them to get the X Division title. That's great.
Right. So you got smaller guys that have to get through Hobbs and Cage to get to Ricky. I think that works really well, honestly.
Yeah. That maybe should happen.
So what do you think?
So as far as the TNT belt, that's a tough one. I think
because the undercard's weak.
Yeah, it's very weak. I would actually probably go with Josh Alexander. If Ethan Page is probably leaving, I think he would be a good fit, and that's a good way to kind of build him up and start his singles push. And I think he could do a little something.
I agree. I like Josh Alexander.
X Division title, I'm going Scorpio Sky. He could be the workhorse, and he could put on fantastic matches with a host of different people.
He's the only guy in SCU who wasn't the X Division champion.
There you go. So that would be my X Division and TNT swap.
Yeah, I like that. Let's talk about the World Heavyweight Championship. Let's not say Kenny Omega, because that's kind of what they're building toward.
Okay.
So if I were to say, I'll go to you. If you were putting an Impact talent as the world heavyweight champion of the second largest promotion in North America, third largest in the world, I'll give New Japan the nod over them for now. Who are you from that roster?
You can't even get it out without laughing.
Who are you putting it on?
Oh man, that's a very tough. Rich Swann comes to mind, but I'm not going to put it on him because he's already the champion.
That's easy.
Yeah, so that's too easy. So I'm not going to use him. Sami Callihan, I think he would probably be able to talk his way, especially with a live mic, and he is a good talker. It's just his in-ring work that I don't get behind.
I'm
but
100% with you on that.
Yeah, so he's somebody who possibly could, especially as a heel, because it would just piss so many people off.
Him and Moxley have some history too, so they could actually have some interesting talking matches up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. That there would be a lot of history there too. So Sammy actually, he's not my pick, but he would actually move a little bit more up the ranks than I thought. I didn't even think about that connection there. There's a natural story there too. Moose is my second choice. I'm very high on Moose. I think he's got the look, especially for being the number 2 national team in the world. I think it helps to have a look, and I think with AEW, he could, with the guys there especially, they can work with him, and he's got an athletic style that could work with them as well. So he would be one, but this may sound crazy, but I think I'd go with Eric Young.
Oh gosh,
I really think I'd go with Eric Young, and I would let him form another version of kind of a sanity group and let him kind of run rampant.
It's kind of what he's doing now in Impact. It seems like actually it was one of my highlights of the show was those couple of highlights there with Eric Young and Cody Deaner. I actually kind of like that. He has been a world champion. He's very talented, and he's never really been even as TNA world champ. He was never felt like the guy. Mm-hmm. It's a risky pick, but there's nothing on here that isn't a risky pick.
And I think that's the thing. It's like no matter where you go, you're taking a chance, and it depends on where you want to take your chance. Do you want to go with the look? You go with Moose. You want to go with someone who can talk. You go with Sammy. If you want to go, who's going to put on the most consistently good matches and can talk probably. He can talk, but he's shown he can be a good leader of a good group, and he's a veteran guy. I think Eric Young's your guy. Eddie Edwards, but he's so bland. This
is the least bland Eddie Edwards has ever been.
Right. You know what I mean? But you put him in front of on an AEW stage, that's a whole different ballgame.
Doesn't work.
So I think I'd go with Eric Young. I go with the work rate guy.
Yeah, I can't.
Especially with the AEW audience, I go with the work rate guy.
I can't argue it. Of this roster I'm looking at, this is why Kenny Omega's here, man. This is why they need Kenny Omega.
It is.
This is why they're going to take abuse from Tony Schiavone and Tony Khan every week. All right, my turn. What AEW guy am I going to put the Impact World title on that's not Kenny Omega? John Moxley's too easy. Chris Jericho's too easy. Because those are just legitimate stars. Mm-hmm. Sure. That's easy. Who is someone? Brian Cage already had that title, so again, that's easy. I want to be creative. Who is someone? Oh, Cody Rhodes.
That would make sense. He can't win his world title.
Can't win his. Yep. It works. He did not get that opportunity. His brief stay in Impact. It's not the most inventive choice. I kind of wish I'd gone out on a limb a little bit because I was thinking about other guys. I was thinking about maybe Darby, but I was like, that's kind of on brand for me to pick that. Let's see something. No, the most logical choice would probably be Cody Rhodes, if we're going anyone other than Kenny Omega or John Moxley. Just shows you how that AEW actually does have a pretty good roster. Now going the other way. This is tough, man.
Unnecessarily tough.
And it makes me, and I'm like, I see why they need help. because like you said, Ethan Edwards has been the world champ there. I don't think that's the guy. Joe Doring was the All Japan world champ a couple times, but he is not portrayed in that regard in this company. So that's not a good place to go with him right now anyway, and maybe not ever. I don't know. I'm looking up, and the guy I'm going to go with was the G1 runner-up in 2012, probably the best worker in the company, and he's got a lot of charisma, but plays in a very dry way. I'm going to go Machine Gun.
Really?
Tell me someone better. You know?
I mean, I don't think I can, but wow, okay. I didn't see that coming. That's not a bad call, and I think that would definitely shock people and draw attention.
I'm literally on the roster page right now, and I'm scrolling up and down of who do I think could be. Because I was like, what about Ken Shamrock? And I'm like, he's so old, and no. And I love Ken Shamrock, don't get me wrong, but it's not the way you want to go. I mean, they don't have Swann is this is why Swann is the champion right now, because he really is in the singles division the best they have. But Carl Anderson's a good performer. He had great stuff in New Japan. He's a dojo guy. He had a fantastic match with Okada for the G1 back in 2012. I think that's who I would go with.
And I can't really argue with your pick. And honestly, he's probably a better choice than Eric Young because he is a more recognizable, I think, face than Eric Young is. And he's shown that his singles work is still really good, which he's been able to have a few singles matches on Impact. So yeah, I like that. And looking at the roster myself, there's guys that they had shots with, they had a chance with Ace Austin. They had an opportunity to kind of really build him up over this last year. And another guy, I think Willie Mack is someone who they haven't done a lot. Mack. I like Willie Mack too. And
I've liked Willie Mack since Lucha Underground, but again, he's just
there.
Yeah,
he's just there. And you're right. I mean, part of me almost said I might go with Chris Sabin again as far as AEW but I was I already picked him for the tag titles, but
he's beat up.
He is beat up. He is.
Yeah, he has a hard time moving. Bay might be. I put Bay in the TNT thing, but I mean, this is why they're pushing Bay, because there's just not much in the cupboard right now in Impact.
Yeah, it's not a they miss a guy like Eli Drake. They miss guys like that right now, because he'd be an easy pick if they had him. He'd be a
Nick Aldis,
James Storm.
Yep, those Impact guys. This is. Part of me wonders if Tony Khan didn't buy Impact and didn't tell us and is going to use it as their NXT.
That wouldn't be the worst idea.
I mean, they got all these guys in their contract.
That would be the worst idea. You need a second show anyway.
And there's guys, there's veterans, there's good there's good. It's not to say this promotion sucks. It really doesn't. There's good guys on the roster. Heath is a good wrestler. Joe Doring, good wrestler. They got
TJP.
Hernandez. TJP, there's good guys. Brian Myers, there's pros on this roster, but just not a star, with it. And I think Swann can be, and I think they've done a pretty good job with him so far. But yeah, man, God, who's the most over? Maybe Tommy Dreamer might be the most over guy in the company, with a mainstream wrestling audience.
That's not good.
No,
that's not good.
This is what I'm saying. This is why they I'm going to maintain they need Kenny Omega, and they do need I think if I were them, because WWF used to do this back in the day, is they would send a lot of their guys to ECW for work. Al Snow, Furnace and LaFon, maybe Rhino would have been. Maybe Rhino was one of those too. I forget. But they had a bunch of guys that were under WWE contracts. Scorpio, Too Cold Scorpio, were not getting enough work, or needed more work to get better. Scorpio definitely wasn't that guy. That they would put in ECW, and it helped ECW a lot. Al Snow would have been world champ in ECW, but he got over, and they brought him back up with the head gimmick. That's where the head gimmick came from, was ECW. So there's no reason in my mind AEW couldn't do this with Impact and bring a lot of the guys that are too good for dark but not getting enough time on Dynamite. You know, like I don't want to say Scorpio Sky because that's beneath him, I think. But you could put guys like Kip Saban.
Yeah, and it would be really good for a lot of the girls.
Oh, 100%.
You know, it'd be really good for them to work with Jordan Grace and Tennille. And, well, again, she's okay, but she knows how to work. You know, she's better than the AEW girls.
They're better than a lot of what they have. I agree with that. I think the AEW, a lot of the girls in AEW, they're projects.
Right.
They could be good. Like, even Swole, I think, could be good, but she's still kind of green. You know, and this is what happens when one company has had such a stranglehold over the development system of pro wrestlers over the last decade. And again, I questioned that last week, and now Keith Lee's down there back because he can't throw punches that make Vince McMahon happy. And it's like, well, what the hell do you guys do? You've been there for 2 years. Nobody worked on how to throw a punch that you're not happy with? Like, there's a level of disconnect in that company that boggles my mind. And you got all these big guys. Vince McMahon thinks none of them can work. Well, they've all been in the system for years. What have you been doing with them? I don't know. So, but this is the problem with the stranglehold that's been on pro wrestling for so long, and why the Japanese talent gets better because of the dojo system. We don't have that here.
Yeah,
we have schools,
and only a couple of them.
There's a bunch of places to train, but I mean, like, how many of them are reputable?
Right. That's what I mean. Like, how many of them are going to get you where you want to go?
Right. Like, there's a reason why you don't see the guys that stand out and wait for the dude to catch you spot in Japan as much. Once in a while you see it, but I mean, it looks, when Hiromu does it, it looks 1,000 times better than just about anybody in America. Right. Like, there's just, the systems work better. Like, they need to be better systems in this country. And there's places that train good guys. Creative Pro does a good job training people, you know, but there's not enough in my opinion, you know?
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with all that. So, as far as what AEW wrestler I would choose for Impact, you know, what you just said, it kind of changed my mind, because I almost feel like I can't pick someone too big to be champion of Impact. Because
it's almost like too obvious.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
and it's almost like me saying Cody Rhodes, I'm like, well, of course. But even then, it feels like it's beneath him a bit, you know?
Yeah. It's so, you know, at first I was going to be like Adam Page. No question.
Adam Page is not a bad call, actually.
But I think I don't think he should do that, because he would have to lose. And I don't think he needs to lose before he goes to the AEW World title. So then it got me thinking MJF. And I'm like,
I like that.
You know, because then he can brag about being the world champion, the only world champion, the true world champion. But then I was like, you know, there's another guy that Tony Khan is really high on, and I could see him letting this guy just run rampant on the other show. And your theory about him possibly buying the show would even play more into it.
That's just speculation. I don't know.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. Pure 100% speculation, but I like the idea, and I like speculating, and I think it's a great idea. Let's just put that in the air, too. Let's get that started.
Yeah, rumors.
That Tony Khan bought Impact. Let's get that started.
Bought Impact and shit on his investment right away. Oh, he is turning into Vince McMahon.
Miro.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
I would have Miro be my Impact World Champion.
So I had a thought. It's occurred to me what Miro is, what he's doing. Right?
Nothing?
No. He's American Psycho.
Really?
Yeah. No, I think that's what he's going for. I don't think it's come across yet. But like, he cut this promo where he was like talking about how everything that matters in life, and reminding me, it's like everything that matters is your likes and your follows on Instagram, and like talking about all these things in his Twitch streams. And he goes, and then I have to murder someone. He said that very casually. And then he kept going, and I was like, did he say he was going to murder someone? That's something you just don't say in a WWE promo. And then he like beat up 4 dudes. He actually I don't know if you saw it, but I liked the him beating everybody up at the end of the week. They got fined $75,000, and that's when I was like, dude, he's doing like a modern twist on American Psycho. I don't know if it's going to work, but I think that's kind of where this is going. Where, you know, like, because remember the Patrick Bateman character. You've seen American Psycho, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. The Patrick Bateman character was very 80s in what he was concerned with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be what this is now? Like, he comes out with all the Gucci shit, which again, to people older than me, it looks stupid, but I'm not cool, but I get that younger people think this shit is cool. Like, not for me, but I get it.
It's not
like,
for
and he
me
comes out.
either.
Yeah, it's not us. We're talking about wrestling on Friday night.
not
We're
for me
clearly not those guys. But I mean, like what he's talking about is very vain. It's very unimportant. Like he said, he should be the champion over Moxley because he had more Instagram followers. And I'm like, people laughed at the time, but I'm like, I think he's character building.
Maybe you're right, but
maybe I'm giving him more credit than he deserves.
I think you are, but like you said, we'll see. You know, he's got time. We'll find in a year from now, we'll see where they're at.
I want to revisit this, but I think that's the intention, is to build like a modern day take on American Psycho.
All right, okay.
I can say I'm not thinking it's going to work.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I think that's the intention.
He I think I need to, again, you've told me this multiple times. I just need to listen to you. Tony Khan said something. I just need to stop taking him at face value.
Absolutely. Never listen. And Vince McMahon too.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. I don't take him at face value anyway.
The worst you can do is listen to the investor calls.
Yeah.
Never listen to what these people actually say. Watch what they do.
Yeah, and that's why when he says he's very high on Miro, he's going to be a major player for the company for years to come. Okay, we will see. Like why not have this dude just come in and start being the Bulgarian Brute again? You don't have to be that character, but just the way he was portrayed and just bulldoze people. That's what I was expecting.
I don't think he wants to do that. I think he wants to have more of a character, and I do think this is kind of like a creation of some sorts. Does it work? I have no idea.
Why everybody got to like create these masterpieces? Why can't they just be these dudes who just come in and buzzsaw people? Like, what's wrong with that character?
Because like back in the day, everyone, like, guys did have characters, right? Guys did have personalities. Terry Funk has a character, right? Mm-hmm. Like Terry Funk is the middle-aged crazy, right? He's the madman Texan who, like, soft sweet talk, but then he'll try to kill you with a branding iron, right? That was Terry Funk. Like Magnum TA, we watched Magnum TA, that he had a character. Sting had a character. Lex Luger, you know what I'm saying? Like, I say these things and you think in your head about what these guys were about. Like, dude who comes in and kills people, there's nothing, like, it looks cool for a little bit, but it doesn't go very far. It becomes, okay, then what? Like, you have to win. Like, and this is like a writing thing, is like people will accept a lot of like crap if they dig the character.
So what do you think? And this is just for an example, since we mentioned them earlier. What do you think made somebody like a Goldberg special?
Well, Goldberg was a killer in an era where nobody really was. He was different, right? Mm-hmm. Goldberg is the only person of that era that would literally come out and kill somebody and walk away, because it's all he could do. And he had an air of believability about him in an era where guys were still cartoonish. Like, even the NWO was still pro wrestling. Goldberg came off very differently, right? In the late 90s, there was an era of Goldberg where you really thought this was him, right? And you say, well, he wasn't playing a character, but that is that is the character, Mm-hmm. He was like an early MMA style killer, like an old Ultimate Fighting Championship style killer. Right? And he's the exception to the rule, because name me another character like that that's been successful.
Well, I would say a Brock on his return back has kind of been like that a little bit.
But what is Brock on the second return? He's the former UFC heavyweight champion.
True. Okay. Very true. Good point.
That has been the character. He's a mercenary. He fights he left for money. He came back for money.
That's fair.
Touché. He's a mercenary.
They had it like that for Ryback for a while, but obviously,
but that's what I'm saying.
You're right.
There's such a short shelf life on I beat people up.
You're
right.
People
say it's simple. It's simple. It's not that simple. If it was, that's all they would do, and it would constantly make money. Like, character trumps everything. Hulk Hogan is the best example of that. He had character. For much of his WWE tenure, he wasn't even a good person, but the character won out. Like, the best example, Hulk Hogan, in 1992 Royal Rumble, greatest Royal Rumble ever. Ric Flair wins it because Hulk Hogan gets mad because good guy Sid Justice tosses him out. Hogan gets mad, fakes a handshake, and pulls him out of the ring. And the crowd booed his ass.
It's a very Hogan thing to do, to take the spotlight off of Flair.
That's what I'm saying. But people but he got away with it for 6 years before that because he was Hulk Hogan. I'm going to write this piece for Fight Game. Took me up on it. I haven't had time to write it because it's a big one. I'm going to tell how the Hogan Savage story was Macbeth. And I'm going to break this down because I figured out in my head this story was Macbeth, but it has nothing to do with Hogan. It's all about Savage, right? Well, Savage's character.
Okay, it's a different angle right there.
It's my masterpiece. I can't. I'm working on it. It's not done yet. It's going to be something special.
Oh, that's a little teaser right there, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's good. People. This is like the Kenny. I jokingly told Garrett, I'm like, the Kenny Omega Don Callis thing is the most read thing that site's had. This next thing I give you will be the least read thing the site's ever had, and I can't wait to provide it. Like, it's gonna be my madness. But again,
Savage Hogan's that people are gonna be intrigued by that.
Like, I think that's how I got him. Is like my crazy ass saying that. But again, the character thing wins out. And again, that's the problem with Roman. He didn't have a character. Now he's got a character. What was Roman's character when they were pushing him?
See, I thought that was... See, to me, that's how the character was, because that's how he was in The Shield. He was just the killer. Didn't. He was the silent killer.
That works in a three-man group. And until it didn't. Until the people said, okay, what else you got? And CM Punk didn't do him any favors. But I mean, like...
Well, he didn't do himself any favors either, just because he wasn't quite ready yet. He needed a little more time in that group and kind of started branching out before they just kicked him out. I agree with that.
It did come out too much, but that's the problem. There was nothing else there. Like, people want three-dimensional characters. People will cling to two-dimensional characters for a moment in time, and then they're gone.
Ryback and Braun Strowman are perfect examples.
Braun Strowman are perfect examples of it. But, like, CM Punk was not. Daniel Bryan, that's the three-dimensional character. John Cena is a three-dimensional character. Like, John Cena is a great example of a feet of clay hero that I've ever seen. Like, Steve Austin, The Rock. Like, these are three-dimensional characters. Like, people say, like, I need a killer. Like, The Undertaker, they got a lot out of him doing very little because he showed up very little. Like, the zombie Undertaker was only brought out when you needed him out. Right? And it worked. But when the show changed and became week by week, the character changed. Because he couldn't be a caricature. And this is what worked in WWE in the late 80s into the early 90s. Is they didn't have characters. They had caricatures. You know, the Berserker was the Viking guy, and the Barbarian had these crazy like fur skin coats that he would wear, and that's what they were. There was nothing to them other than what you saw. Consequently, none of those guys got over. Even the Ultimate Warrior only got so far.
Well, that's because at the end of the day, he wasn't very good.
No, he wasn't very good. Like, he had an intense amount of charisma. He captured people's zeitgeist for a short amount of time, and ravishing Rick Rude made him look awesome. That guy owes his career to Rick Rude. But there was nothing to him.
He had a great match with Savage, too.
Yes, Savage and Rude got a lot out of him.
Well, let me rephrase that, because I haven't seen that match in a while. It's a really good match. I don't know if it's still great.
No, it is. That's his best match, because Savage is a nutcase and laid it out. Like, Savage told him that we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this, because Savage understood wrestling like nobody else. He had a phenomenal mind.
Savage, man, a lot of his what's crazy is a lot of his matches would still hold up today, like just with the pace and the moves and stuff. Like everything he does just would still hold up well today. That match would hold up today.
Yes, it would. Any of his matches, the Steamboat match in this era, in this high spot era, Savage Steamboat holds up.
Absolutely.
Savage Hogan holds up. Savage later on, Savage Dallas Page holds up. Like, I get bored sometimes and I'll watch like old promos. His promos from Memphis in the early 80s are fantastic. When he's just true madman Randy Savage. Like, he comes off like a dude who just did a bunch of cocaine and ran out on the stage and was just like a maniac. But there's this terrifying charisma to him that just works. And then as a babyface, he's my favorite Savage is the one that I first met, like in the early 90s, like when he came out of retirement, when he literally became this like of the people baby face that would do the commentary, and he would come out when the fans needed him to. That's my favorite Randy Savage. That's the one that I first was introduced to. But like, there's so much the man could do. I think he's one of the greatest performers ever. And I think he was almost too good in his era because he could make anyone look good.
And
right?
he unfortunately
that means,
came up in the Hulk Hogan era too.
Right. So he was Hulk Hogan's number 2,
Mm-hmm.
but he was the best. Like of that, and I see again. I lived through part of it, and I went back and watched a lot of it. Hogan has, like, everyone watches Hogan Andre. Those matches are god awful. They drew a lot of money, but they're god awful. Hogan has 2 really good programs. His whole run in WWE. 3. Take it back. 3. 3 really good programs. Piper, Orndorff, Savage.
No love for The Rock?
It's not really a program. They did that thing failed. And I'll tell you why. It's because Hogan was supposed to be the villain, and it didn't work.
No,
so they had to switch. They rolled the punches. Great, but I'm talking like a program.
Okay, touche. True that.
Like Piper and Hogan was the back the WWF was built on, right? Because Hogan doesn't have a villain his whole first year. Second year, he's Roddy Piper, and Roddy Piper's a legend. Paul Orndorff and him drew so much money around the country, and people have kind of forgotten that because it didn't headline one of their big show, like one of the big pay-per-view shows, right? But they drew so much money, so much killer TV ratings, and it was a great. We were best. It was very similar to the Savage story, best friends that turn on each other, and a lot of that stuff was recycled for the Savage one, but it worked. It was such a good story, and Hogan he's becoming a bit of an asshole because that whole feud works on the fact that Orndorff needed help and Hogan was too busy working out and wouldn't take his phone call. That's true. That is how that feud starts.
Oh wow.
Adonis and Stutter shit talking Paul Orndorff, and Orndorff literally in the middle of a I think it's a Piper's Pit, calls Hogan for help, and Hogan has someone take the call and says Hogan can't come to the phone right now, he's working out. And then Orndorff turns on him. He's like, you're working out? Okay, fine. And then Hogan cuts, I'll say this right now, some of the best promos of his career. I will send you these promos from this program. Where Hogan was like, I would have, of course I'd have had your back. You caught me at the worst possible moment. But it's so relatable, It's such a good program.
Something Hogan doesn't get enough credit for is his promo ability.
Oh, that's why he got away with everything, because and this is early in his run too. The early Hogan is so much better than the later Hogan that figured everything out. Mid 80s Hogan is the best Hogan.
The hungry Hogan.
Yes. 84 to 87 Hogan is the best Hogan. And again, I'm going to tell you, because I think I will maintain 100% that whole Savage feud was all about Savage. Hogan is just there being Hogan. We're supposed to draw sympathy with Hogan, but Savage is the interesting person throughout the whole thing.
Well, it's especially hindsight looking back at it, it's what did Savage do wrong?
This is going to be the whole thing. Power. Savage got greedy.
I don't want you to give away your autograph. My bad.
I'll just throw this at you. Randy Savage's character, his entire character is he has imposter. The Randy Savage character has imposter syndrome. He wants to look bigger than he is because he's a big dude, but he comes up in the era where they were giants, right? Randy Savage was maybe 6'1", maybe. I remember I met him once and he didn't seem that much. I'm 5'10" and he didn't seem that much bigger than me. But he was jacked to the gills, right? So I think and he wore these gapes to make him look huge. So I think Savage has a little bit of that imposter syndrome, and then he gets his moments and he doesn't want to let it go. And his obsession with hanging on to the moments, and it's personified through Elizabeth. So I got good shit. I can't wait. I might stay up all night and write this now, you son of a bitch.
Well, look at that. We done gave you some Dragon Gate. You got a little AEW, some Impact talk. We fantasy booked a collector gimmick. We swapped titles. We got some Savage talk in there. We gave you a little teaser. It's a packed show.
Dude, I'm on Twitter right now, and I'm watching an Impact screen. This is from this day in Impact in 2003. And I'm going to describe this to you. In the ring, you have Raven and CM Punk. And then outside the ring, Jeff Jarrett is fighting with AJ Styles, and who runs out but Sting?
Wow.
How is this promotion so bad?
To have all that in the ring back then, it's just in the palm of your hands.
This must be 2004 before they were on TV. But like, and again, this is AJ and Punk before they were like AJ and Punk. But I mean, like,
this was still Punk, the Ring of Honor legend Punk, though.
This is pre Ring of Honor legend Punk.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the guys that they had. Like, you can never say Impact didn't have good guys, right? It's always came down to the execution. And it's still that problem. We read a list of super talented dudes that have been failed to be defined properly by the company. And you can say it for AJ Styles until he became the IWGP champion, and even more so until he showed up in WWE. But AJ's always been good.
Always arguably been the best in the world. You wouldn't know it with TNA.
Right. I mean, people say, well, he was world champ multiple times. Yeah, but he was never really the guy. Like AJ, like Jeff Jarrett was the guy. Then Angle was the guy. Then it was like, it was always somebody else, and AJ was always like playing off of them rather than being the guy. You know what I'm saying?
Samoa Joe, same things. That should have been Samoa Joe's company. Like,
do you know what
his second year?
Do you know what the number one drawing card? Like, Impact only hit 60,000 pay-per-view buys one time. Like, people talk about TV ratings from a different era. That don't matter. Like, when it came to pay-per-views, Impact only hit 60,000 pay-per-view buyers one time. Do you know what the main event was?
It's got to be Joe and Angle.
That's it.
Is it now? Which one? I don't know, because they had like
first one.
Oh, is it the first one?
First one.
Now because I remember that match had a lot of hype behind it because Angle came out headbutt. I'm like, there was a lot of buzz for that match.
So you're telling me if there's buzz and hype for pro wrestling, people will be interested in paying money? I'm shocked to hear that.
Now, to be fair, I don't think they charge $50.
35 in that era.
See, that's not bad.
No,
that's
it isn't.
Bad.
AEW's charging $50 and more than doubling them in most of their pay-per-view numbers.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. If it was $30, it's a lot more feasible for me to like want to get their pay-per-views. But 50 is a lot to come off of, man.
I get that, but then I had this business lesson once where someone said, if you want to make money in those video industry time, you want to make an industry, double your prices. And someone goes, if I double my prices, I'll lose half my customers. And he snapped his fingers and went, bingo.
Oh, well, there you go.
Like, Impact, if AEW cut their prices in half, they would have to sell double the pay-per-views just to make up the ground.
Yeah, you're right.
If they were selling 10,000 pay-per-views, then you have to lower your prices. Then the market says no. But they're averaging 100,000. Like, on all their shows, they've averaged 100,000 buyers. You know?
So yeah, I guess there's no reason to lower it because it's not like it's not gonna go to 200,000 or something if you lower it. So
no, that's the thing. It's like
right.
you expect double. Like, it doesn't make, like, I get a lot of people say, oh, if they made it cheaper, I would watch it. Yes, but would it literally double to get where you are?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It pretty much just screw me and the other 15 people who would have bought it for the 30.
But it's at the same time, like, now you've created that's business. You've created a high drawing commodity, and you need to have, like, to run a successful business, you have to have high ticket items. That's where you make your money.
Oh, I've 100% been spoiled by the $9.99. 100%.
And it's even more impressive they've done that in an era where WWE has devalued their pay-per-views, and they're talking about selling their pay-per-views to another streaming platform because they ain't making the money they thought they were going to make.
Well, I don't. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I don't know what I don't know what you expected or what your plateau was. Yeah, like
they expected 4 million people, and it's been about 1.4. It's been the Raw.
Two is what I would have been shooting for. I think 4 is like, wow.
They thought 4. That was their projection. Their projection was 3 to 4.
I'd have been shooting for 2. Shooting for 2.
Well, that's why they're not. That's why the people that spearheaded that thing are not with the promotion anymore.
Well, that'll be saved for another conversation because that's a whole show.
Another can of worms.
Man, that'll be one where JD will just get to lay into him and love it, and I won't have much of a defense for it.
Oh, there's nothing I enjoy more. Nothing. I live for it.
JD, tell me where to find you one more time before we go.
Easiest place to find me, I babble a lot, is Twitter @JD_Oliva. If you like some supernatural thrillers, You like some horror books. This is what I do for a living. Wrestling is just my hobby that I spend way too much time on.
And you can find me on Twitter, Knee for Marvel vs. DC. That's the number 4. You can find this show at Showdown Pro. Download the podcast, like, subscribe. And we'll talk to you guys next time. JD, tell everyone you talk to them next time.
See you next time.
Peace.
This is Defy Life.